This is the Bush Whisperer coming from the most beautiful penguin sanctuary, southern tip of Africa, Boulders Beach. Come to talk to you today about people that have lost their common sense, that have become jaded by the internet. And it's a huge problem. And by jaded, I'm meaning very much on a personal level. I'll give you a little bit of an allegory, an example. You can hear the little babies calling out, looking to be fed. I was recently attacked in a group by some random person who obviously hasn't watched any of my videos. And I responded with a smile because obviously the attack wasn't relevant or valid. It's always good to be gracious. It's always good to be decent and respectful in what you say to people. It doesn't have to drop to other people's level. I was called a scammer and other names, and I was attacked for my British accent. Apparently I've got a British accent. I don't think I do. I did spend much time with a British wife, so she rubbed off on me as I rubbed off on her. They said she sounded South African, and people said I sounded British. Though I'm very much a South African. And I've noticed this as a phenomenon that happens quite a lot. Another friend of mine posted a spiritual video about spiritual consciousness in a spiritual group, and he was kicked out of the group. And this is fundamentally jealousy at work. This does happen. And I've noticed this. Jealousy can be a toxic emotion. It can be very dangerous. Though the kind of jealousy that people are experiencing are very often because people are self-styled, I don't know, gurus, teachers, masters. I see a lot of people calling themselves masters. And very often the people that attack other people are the kind of people that call themselves a master, or they'll call themselves a guru. And I do find it rather hilarious. Since the world has progressed to become the online network, the online fellowship, shall we say, of this new religion, I can call it a religion, I suppose, of everybody operating with a community that spans the world. Though many, many people operate in anonymity, which I can understand for many people. I can understand for women very often wanting to operate in anonymity because sometimes men can be a bit much, chasing after women and being a bit rude, you know. Because the men can remain anonymous, they can make horrible comments towards women, and it can be very debilitating. But the dark side of this, the people that are generally tending to be jealous and nasty are very often the people that don't really have much of a life, I'm guessing. They don't spend enough time in nature. They don't spend enough time talking to other people, which is why I had to stop this video a moment ago to say hello to my local community and neighbors, because I speak to the people when they walk past. Often when you see my videos stopping, it's because I'm actually stopping to speak to people and say hello. Because I'm a local here and I know all the other people. Yeah, in Simonstown, we tend to know each other. We tend to know all of our neighbors. I know the people who live in my street. I know my neighbors. I know the people who live in my community. I've actually got a community group on WhatsApp, which is the Seaforth community group, which is probably like 120 people that live in my immediate vicinity. By Seaforth, which is a very small place, part of Simonstown, a little bubble within Simonstown, you could say, a little tourist bubble. So I find that living in the real world is for me fundamental, and I've never been able to grasp how people can be rude to people. And on the internet there's this rudeness. Very often people are really nasty. They behave like sociopaths or even like narcissists, and this often comes from a sense of poor self-esteem, because people aren't engaging with other people and they are aware of the fact that they're not engaging with other people. And so they start to feel self-conscious because they know that they can't really engage on a face-to-face level. Many people are too scared to record their faces and to put it out there because they're scared of what people are going to think or say to them. Many people I find are too scared to even listen to the sound of their own voice or allow others to hear their voice. They feel more comfortable hiding behind text. They're too scared to put their own photograph on their profiles because they're scared of what other people are going to think, what other people are going to say. So they tend to have fake photos of something else, and they never speak with voice notes because text is more anonymous. And so these people very often become sociopaths because they lose the connection of the heart. They forget that they're speaking to real people. And because they don't listen to the sound of their own voice, they can't hear where they're coming from emotionally. When you actually use your own voice, you have to be listening to your voice. And you can hear the sound of your voice. If your voice sounds horrible, you're going to know, my voice doesn't sound good. And you're not going to want your voice to sound horrible. So you're actually going to become more conscientious of what you say. And you'll notice how what you say impacts who you are because of the way it changes the tone of your voice. So this conscientiousness and this openness and this realization, knowledge, is being lost by people that are hiding behind text. And it's very sad because we've all been trained to think in this manner. In a sense, we've all been trained to behave in this sort of shallow manner. And so we're losing our humanity step by step. We're losing our essential integrity in this way. And in the same way that I've observed very many people that have wonderful spiritual messages being kicked out of groups, or people trying to marginalize them because somebody starts a group and they're one of those fake people that don't use their own photos or their own names. People don't know who they are. They want to hide their identities completely. And they get a following because they basically steal other people's content. So I've often had people wanting me to not use voice notes and to type what I say, because that way they can cut and paste the things I say and use it as if it's theirs. You can't cut and paste somebody else's voice and pretend it's yours. You will be caught out. And I realized this many years ago because I've been a poet for my whole life, and I've written great philosophies. And I used to notice on Facebook years ago when I used to use text, other people used to try and sell off my text as if it's their own. And it was very sad for me to watch people being so disingenuous, people being so inauthentic. So I've learned to use voice notes. And it's also a much more human way of engaging with people. It's a much more direct, face-to-face way to communicate with people. Wow, that light is bright when it shines in my eyes. And so it is that people get jealous when they see that you're not inhibited in the manner that they're inhibited. They can become nasty. And this nastiness can turn people into sociopaths. And this causes people to want to attack others because they feel the authenticity of another human being is like an affront to their own inauthenticity, because they can see and feel their own insecurities. And so I've observed this as a pattern. And I've even noticed it in certain groups where people feel marginalized by what I'm saying because I'm speaking with voice notes, because they don't like the fact that people respond well to a real human being having a real conversation with their own voice, because you can actually tell where someone's coming from when they speak. So I'm going to say to those of you out there that this is touching, and like this video, share this video so it can get out there. I think this is very important content. Let's let the YouTube algorithms work for us. It's very important to use our own voices. Your voice is the most sacred thing you have. It's the most real way that there is to communicate. Text has become a mental exchange of ideas. Now, a psychologist will say that 70%, I want you to grasp those numbers, 70%, this is according to scientific method research, of all communication is non-verbal. What does that mean? That means the tone of your voice says as much as the words that you speak. The expressions, the mannerisms, the way in which you share your ideas, say as much about what it is that you're trying to say as the actual text of the words that you're expressing. So that means that if you're using words in text form, at best, you're going to be able to get a 30% conveyance of what you're really expressing. It's very easy to lie with text. It's very easy to be disingenuous. It's very easy to be fake. If you want to become more real and more genuine, if you want to be able to speak from your heart, you got to learn to be vulnerable. You got to learn to put yourself out there. And there will be people that will try and be haters. This is life. Because the internet has turned many people into sociopaths. And whenever the status quo is threatened, they feel threatened. Because then they feel that they now need to match that in order to be real. And sometimes people resent that. They resent the fact that other people can have a real conversation using their voices and they are now feeling left out. Because this is what happens. When you start using your voice in a group, you'll find other people start using their voices too. Because they feel, oh, well, if you're not scared to actually use your voice, then why should I be? Let's consider how much faster it is to actually make a voice note than it is to type text. Or are you one of those weird people that actually texts faster than you speak? If so, you need to think about what I'm saying really carefully. Maybe you've got a speech impediment, which is okay. The way in which you can develop speech impediments and heal them is by speaking. I knew a guy who, in one of my social groups, was having challenges with his speech. And he used to make voice notes because I started making voice notes. And he started responding with the voice notes. And there was one total narcissist in my group. Good morning. That used to continually try and attack him. And it's the one person I've actually booted from my group. He's banned from all my spaces. He keeps trying to add himself to the group. I keep banning him, keep kicking him out. I won't allow him back in because he's done it to many people. Sadly, this is what happens when people spend too much time on Facebook. So he used to attack this person for the way they speak and used to do like horrible imitations because the guy was having issues with the challenges with his speech. And the thing is, though, I used to encourage him and I used to knock the other guy down off his horse and say, you're talking nonsense, you're being nasty and you're being a sociopath, you know. And I encouraged this other person, bless you, my boy, to use his voice. And I can tell you now, 6 months down the line, he speaks so wonderfully. He speaks beautifully. All he needed was the encouragement and the warmth and other people to start using their voices. And I've noticed since I've been using my voice on Telegram, I'm noticing a lot more people using their voice to respond to me. And so voice conversations are starting to become a bit of a thing. And you can do this too, and other people do this too. And I notice that there are people that are sharing their hearts by actually speaking from their hearts. You see, when you speak, you vibrate the element of air over your heartstrings, literally. And so your heart is engaged with the communication. It's not just your head thinking up symbols, letters, alphabetic words, thinking what it is that other people want to hear. And when you type something, people can inflect onto your text anything they want. You'll find a lot of communication breakdowns happen because of the poor exchange rate of information via text. Words can have different meanings. Words can have different inflections. Words can be reacted to in different ways. But when you're speaking, it's very plain and it's very clear what you're saying. Your meanings can't be twisted. They can't be lost. And if you are a content creator like myself, that's actually creating content, other people can't plagiarize your information easily. They can, but it's a lot of work for them. They've got to listen to what you say and they've got to type your words out laboriously. They can't just cut and paste, save, put it into a folder, keep it for some other social networking device where they are pretending to be you. And this person that was plagiarizing, well, this person that was attacking the other person in the group, and he attacked many people. Good morning. And he had been banned from a number of groups, I noticed, after a while. And many of the admins came to me and spoke to me. He actually went and did campaigns against me in some groups, trying to have people vote about whether I'm a bad guy or not. Because he said I was talking nonsense and I was spreading like lies to people, confusing people about spirituality. And Essentially, he was jealous. He was a young guy. He was 22, 23, something in his low 20s, and he wanted to be a self-styled guru. And he had started his YouTube channel as a self-styled guru, and it wasn't going anywhere. And I think he felt threatened by the fact that I actually have 37 years of experience and have knowledge of various different occult traditions and can have coherent conversations from various different perspectives, tying all the perspectives together, tying connections between occult traditions that other people might not have realized before or seen or known because they haven't been initiated into all of those occult traditions. 37 years is a long time to be practicing, actually practicing. And so it's fundamentally important for us to recognize and realize that we have limitations. And I realize these limitations sometimes when I come in contact with people that have been practicing for 50 years, as I have in my life. So it's fundamentally important to recognize and realize that your voice is a powerful tool and needs to be used. And the more you use your voice, the more you will inspire others to use their voice. And slowly, by and by, we will regain our humanity if we start to communicate in the way that we were meant to communicate. Spiritual sciences were not meant to be written down, in my opinion. They were always considered to be a verbal exchange, a verbal transmission. When you verbally share concepts of this nature, there's the sub-nuances, and there are words that speak between the words in the way that one speaks. Implications are implied, not perceived implications, actual implications that can be tracked through the mannerisms of the voice. This is why the sacred mysteries were always taught by voice, not by writing. And I believe that it's very easy to create a delusional idea. When you use Buddhism as an example, how much of Buddhism has become a transmission of words in books and texts? And the texts are so open to interpretations. And the interpretations get reinterpreted and reinterpreted, and the people that are interpreting it didn't get a genuine interpretation from anyone that got a genuine interpretation from anyone. They've all got interpretations from people who read texts, implying their own interpretations. Instead of getting an interpretation from somebody who got a verbal transmission, from somebody that got a verbal transmission, from somebody that got a verbal transmission, right back to the source, in which case you've got intact nuances, intact truths being expressed, not implied truths as personified by our own anthropomorphic habit of consciousness to project what we think we believe and know onto information. This is fundamental and important for us to grasp and understand how this works, what this is, and to realize that information that we're sharing that comes from the heart, when we really understand it, the understanding can be seen when you speak it. It's easy to just copy text you've read before and write it down as if it's your own, as if it's some kind of profound wisdom or knowledge. But if you were to speak those words, people would very soon be able to tell whether it's really understood by you, whether you really know it. Because the way in which you express it would expose your knowledge, wisdom, understanding, or lack thereof. And this is why I think people often feel very threatened, because they want to style themselves to be something they're not. We're all trying to style ourselves to be something we're not in this world. We all want to be seen as more than what we are, something greater than what we are. People come and talk about what shamanism is and what it means to be a shaman. And I'm pointing out to them, there's nothing special about being a shaman. A shaman is like a career, it's like a vocation, it's a calling. You feel called to move in that direction and to study that, and to do that. In the same way that a plumber feels called to understand building dynamics because they are passionate about building. Or an artist feels called to become an artist. Or a musician feels called to become a musician. And it's not a greater thing than music. You can be as enlightened as a musician as you can be as a shaman. You can be as wise, as full of understanding as a carpenter. There's a story about a carpenter that made it big. We've all heard that story. So you can be as full of wisdom being a floor cleaner, being a rubbish collector. If one does something with one's full heart and open intention and consciousness, one gains wisdom from whatever it is one's doing. So people say, oh, shaman is this and a shaman is that. It's some spiritually enlightened being. It's not. The shaman is someone that's developed ESP. and can use his ESP to help other people. That's all. In the same way that a doctor is someone that's developed knowledge and intellect. Surgeon, someone that's developed a very steady hand and the knowledge to know how to cut, where to cut, and what to do. In the same way that a dietitian is someone that's developed a very profound knowledge and understanding of diet and nutrition and how to apply nutrition to heal people. It's nothing special about being a shaman, is what I'm trying to say. And I'm speaking as a shaman, not as a perceived shaman or a shaman who's armchairs, read books. Just a practicing shaman. This is what I do for a living. It's what I've been doing my whole life. Well, I can't say I've been doing it the whole life. I trained for it most of my life and been doing it for several years. So the reality is that it's important to grasp the reality that we're in. And the easiest way to grasp the reality is to speak from the heart. You'll find a lot of people that are shamanic practitioners, as they call themselves. They won't speak with their voices because they are feeling self-conscious. And to me, whenever I see people that don't want to speak with their voices, I think there might be a reason, you know? And I can understand some people have speech impediments and they are scared of how people would react, but there's no reason not to practice and improve one's speech. Speech is the sacred exchange of information that should never be undermined. And I think it's important to realize that when people are attacking you and trying to undermine you, trying to dethrone you, trying to bring you down, very often it will be because of jealousy. Because they feel insecure and you don't. And they're jealous about the fact that you feel secure enough to put your vulnerability out there. So recognize that and realize that. You've got nothing to fear. You've got nothing to be worried about. The only people that are going to try and dethrone you or attack you are those insecure, weak people that feel insignificant. And so they make themselves insignificant by the act of manifesting their insecurity in such a way as to try and become sociopaths or narcissists. And it's important for us to recognize when people are being bullies. Call them out. Keep it real. Keep it true. Don't allow people to be bullies. Stand up for what's right. The more we use our voices, the more people recognize that they're real human beings speaking. Also realize that the AIs are starting to pretend to be human beings. This is very, very important to recognize in social networking. You don't always know whether you're speaking to a real person. Literally, you could be speaking to an AI. That's something to think about. So as we move forward, this is going to become more and more complicated. It's going to become more and more difficult to be able to determine whether you're actually communicating with an AI, a human being, or a proverbial human being trying to pretend that they're an AI. Because human beings are starting to act like AIs. Total responses, precognition in terms of they have a preconceived response. And they're going to react, and they're going to say the same things in patterns and cycles. Because it's the creative principle of thinking that's been lost to many people. And the creative principle of thinking, the creative intelligence is fundamental to being a human being, to being authentic, to behaving with integrity, to expressing truth. This is the Bush Whisperer. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss my daily uploads. Hope you've enjoyed this video. You can hear the sea in the background. Have a totally gorgeous day. Enjoy yourself. Be well. Om Shanti.